The trouble started long before Blake Shelton even walked on stage, though nobody knew it at the time. The studio halls at the morning show were already buzzing with a strange, jittery tension, a mix of caffeine, tight deadlines, and the faint electric charge that comes when producers sense a segment isn't going to go the way they rehearsed it. Jenna Bush Hager stood just off camera, flipping through her notecards with an impatient flick of her wrist, her smile sharp around the edges. She was usually warm, usually easygoing, even when dealing with guests far pricklier than a country star. But today she wasn't herself. Today there was something coiled in her, a tightness in her shoulders, a hint of fire behind the polished morning show brightness. Blake arrived late, pushing through the side door with two handlers trailing behind him, hat tipped low, sunglasses still on. He looked like he'd had a morning, maybe a long night before it too. His jaw was set, his expression not quite irritation but something that could easily slide into it. The crew noticed it immediately, the whispers began before he even reached the makeup table. He's in one of those moods. Did you hear? He didn't like the questions they sent over. He never likes the questions. He muttered a greeting to Jenna in passing, but it wasn't much more than a nod, and it hung awkwardly in the air between them. Jenna tried to bridge the gap with a quick laugh, brushing off the tension, but Blake didn't bite. He removed his hat with a flick, ran a hand through his messy hair, and sat down in the guest chair like someone being forced into a meeting they didn't sign up for. By the time they were on set, lights blaring overhead, cameras adjusting for the first wide shot, the energy felt sharp. Jenna perched on her seat like she was trying to appear casual, but her knuckles were pale where she gripped her stack of cards. The audience didn't know anything was wrong yet, they were smiling, clapping on cue, waiting for banter and charm. Blake's smile was there, technically, but it didn't reach his eyes. The first few minutes were fine. Surface level, safe, polite. They talked about his new single, his upcoming shows, a charity event he'd agreed to promote. But even then, something was off. He answered with short sentences, clipped phrases, a dryness undercutting every word. Jenna kept trying to liven things with jokes, her usual, easy banter, but he didn't play along. He didn't throw the ball back to her. He didn't give her anything to build on. Then she asked the question. It wasn't meant to be provocative. On paper it was normal, light humor, a little teasing, the standard morning show fare. But to Blake, in that moment, with whatever storm he'd walked in carrying, it struck the wrong chord. So Blake, Jenna said brightly, crossing one leg over the other and giving him that practiced, camera-ready grin, I saw that interview you did last week about your semi-retirement. You said you're slowing down, but fans online think you're secretly gearing up for something big. Which is it? Are you getting tired, or are you just being dramatic? The audience laughed. It was an innocent joke. Except Blake didn't laugh, not even a little. His jaw tightened, his eyebrows lowered just enough for the cameras to catch it. He shifted in his seat, leaning back, arms folding in front of him, a defensive wall of denim and muscle. Tired, he echoed. What makes you think I'm tired? Jenna blinked, thrown by the edge in his tone. She glanced at her producers off camera, trying to read their frantic hand motions. Keep going, they signaled. Smooth it over. I didn't mean anything by it, she said with a light laugh. You told that magazine you were stepping back a little, just teasing you. About it, Blake shook his head slowly, not in disagreement but in disbelief. You media folks love twisting things, he said, voice low but hard. I take one break and suddenly everyone thinks I'm worn out or washed up. The audience went still. Jenna's smile wavered. Blake, no one said washed up. You implied it, he cut in. That's what that question meant. Jenna straightened in her chair, her own jaw setting now. It was a joke, and honestly, you've been in this industry long enough to know what teasing sounds like. Yeah, well, maybe I'm tired of being the punchline. There it was, the spark that hit dry grass. Jenna looked at him, eyes sharpening. Nobody's making you a punchline, Blake. But if you come on a morning show, people are going to ask questions. You can't snap at everybody. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, staring at her. Maybe people should stop assuming stuff about my life. You don't know what I'm dealing with. Then tell us, she shot back. We're not mind readers, but don't pick a fight with me on air just because you're in a bad mood. A murmur rippled through the audience. The cameras zoomed closer, catching every flicker of irritation on Blake's face, every flash of defiance in Jenna's. I'm not in a bad mood, Blake said, though his tone contradicted him entirely. I'm just sick of these kinds of interviews. Then why agree to be here? Jenna asked, voice tight but controlled. Nobody forced you. Blake let out a humorless laugh. You think I wanted to sit here and get grilled? You weren't being grilled, Jenna snapped. It was one light question. You escalated it. A producer off camera began waving frantically again. Jenna saw it, but she didn't stop. Blake saw it too, and smirked bitterly. Oh, right, he said. They're telling you to calm me down. Good luck with that. Jenna's face flushed. Not with embarrassment, but with a rising, crackling anger she could barely keep from spilling. Backstage felt like a pressure cooker. The moment Blake stormed off, crew members scattered in every direction, some trailing him, some rushing to Jenna, others frantically consulting headsets as producers barked instructions through their earpieces. The corridor lights flickered over bodies in motion, a blur of suits, clipboards, makeup brushes, and hurried apologies. Blake's boots thudded heavily against the floor as he moved deeper into the hallway, each step striking like a hammer. Anyone who tried to speak to him, handlers, assistants, even the show's executive producer, got brushed aside with a curt shake of the head. Jenna stood in the wings, frozen for a moment as the adrenaline drained just enough to leave a tremor behind. She pressed her fingers to her temples, inhaling sharply. The audience was buzzing through the studio doors, wondering whether they'd just witnessed a publicity stunt or the real thing. There was no script for disasters like this. Morning shows thrived on controlled spontaneity, but this wasn't that. This was a wildfire. A producer approached Jenna, whispering urgently, "We need you back out there to reset the segment. We'll cut to commercial first. Just breathe, smile, address it lightly. We can spin it." Jenna's eyes snapped up. Her voice, quiet but firm, carried a razor's edge. "Spin what? He just came at me like I insulted his entire career." I know, the producer murmured, hands up in surrender, "but we can't let the show collapse. You're the anchor. People trust you to steer the ship." Jenna closed her eyes. She could still feel Blake's heat, the way he towered over her for that brief moment, the unfair accusation in his voice. She wasn't someone who backed down, not on set, not anywhere. But she also wasn't someone who liked being painted as the aggressor when she had simply asked a standard interview question. She inhaled again, straightened her blazer, and whispered, "Fine. Let's fix this." But the storm wasn't over. Down the hallway, Blake was pacing like a caged animal. He'd ripped off his mic pack and tossed it onto a table. His hat was in his hands now, crushed tightly between his fingers. Two handlers hovered nearby, unsure whether to approach or retreat. One finally mustered the courage to step forward. "Blake, man, you okay?" He didn't answer. Not immediately. He stared at the floor, chest rising and falling with sharp breaths. "She made me look like a joke out there," he finally muttered. The handler exchanged a glance with the other man. "Buddy," she asked a normal question. "She wasn't attacking you." Blake's head snapped up. "Of course you'd say that. Everyone thinks I'm overreacting. Nobody knows what kind of week I've had." "What kind of week?" the handler asked gently. Blake's jaw moved, but no words followed. He shook his head instead. "Doesn't matter. I shouldn't have come today." Back in the studio, the commercial countdown was running out. Jenna sat in her chair, makeup artists dabbing powder on her face, though nothing could quite hide the flush in her cheeks. Her co-host leaned in and whispered, "You sure you're okay?" She forced a small smile. "I'm fine. I've handled worse." But she wasn't fine. Not really. The confrontation had hit her deeper than she wanted to admit. Being challenged on air was part of the job. Being spoken to with that level of hostility, that was different. The floor manager gave the cue. 5 seconds. 4, 3. The show resumed. Jenna took a breath, turned to the camera, and delivered her calmest possible voice. "Welcome back. As you saw, we had a little, unexpected moment with Blake Shelton. These things happen in live television, and we wish him well." The audience chuckled nervously, sensing the effort she was making to soften the edges. But before she could transition to the next segment, the studio doors burst open. Blake re-entered. The audience gasped. Producers froze. Jenna's co-host mouthed, "Oh no." Blake walked straight onto the stage, hat in hand, face flushed, but not with anger this time. Something else. Some mix of regret and stubbornness. Jenna didn't move. She watched him approach with guarded eyes. Without waiting for permission, he stepped beside her chair and faced her directly. "I need to say something." The co-host tried to interject, "We can do this off air."